Emma Rose's eyes darted nervously around the dimly lit saloon as sweat beaded along her hairline, her trembling hands clutching the threadbare shawl around her shoulders. This wasn't where a 19-year-old should be on a Tuesday night in 1876, but desperation had a way of leading people to places they never thought they'd go. Pioche, Nevada had once been a promising silver mining town when Emma's father brought the family west 3 years ago. Now, it was just another dusty outpost where fortunes rose and fell with the mines, and the Rose family fortunes had definitely fallen. 6 months after they'd arrived, influenza had taken both her parents within a week of each other, leaving Emma to care for her 3 younger siblings: 12-year-old Thomas, 9-year-old Sarah, and 7-year-old Joseph. The inheritance money had lasted longer than expected, but eventually dwindled to nothing. The small seamstress business Emma had managed to establish barely covered half their expenses. 2 weeks ago, the pantry had gone empty. 1 week ago, she'd sold her mother's wedding ring. Tonight, she was considering an offer that made her stomach turn. "Well, ain't you a pretty little thing?" Bart Hollister, the saloon owner, said as he circled her like a vulture. His tobacco-stained fingers traced her jawline. "I could use a girl like you upstairs. The miners get lonely, and you could make enough in a week to feed those siblings of yours for a month." Emma recoiled from his touch but didn't leave. That was the worst part. She couldn't just walk away. The children were hungry. Thomas had tried to hide how he'd been giving portions of his food to the younger ones. Sarah had stopped complaining about her empty stomach. Little Joseph had asked in his innocent voice when they would have a real dinner again. "I need time to think," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the raucous piano and drunken laughter. "Don't take too long," Hollister replied, his breath hot against her ear. "Offer's only good tonight. Got other girls wanting the position." Emma backed away, bumping into a table where 3 men played cards. Whiskey sloshed from glasses and curses flew. She mumbled apologies, tears threatening to spill. "Watch where you're going, woman," one man growled, but another voice cut across the tension. "Leave her be, Harkins. Can't you see she's troubled?" Emma looked up to meet the steady gaze of a man she hadn't noticed before. Unlike most in the saloon, he wasn't drunk or leering. He sat with straight-backed confidence, a glass of what looked like water before him. His face was weathered from sun and wind, but his eyes were clear and perceptive. A well-worn hat lay on the table beside a hand of cards, and a star-shaped badge glinted on his chest. "Deputy Marshal Nathan Keegan," he said with a slight nod. "Are you all right, miss?" "I'm fine," Emma said too quickly, trying to move away. The deputy's eyes flicked to Hollister, who was watching their exchange with obvious displeasure, then back to Emma. "You don't look fine. You look like someone with a problem that needs solving." Emma hesitated. There was something in his voice, not pity but understanding. Still, she couldn't tell a lawman she was considering selling herself to feed her family. "It's nothing I can't handle." "Everyone needs help sometimes," Nathan said quietly. He pulled out a chair. "Sit for a moment. Hollister can wait." Against her better judgment, Emma sat. The deputy signaled to the barkeep, who brought over a cup of coffee. "Drink this. It's better than whatever Hollister's offering," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Emma wrapped her cold fingers around the warm mug. "Thank you, but you don't understand my situation." "I understand more than you might think," Nathan replied, studying her with eyes that seemed to see right through her pretenses. "You're Emma Rose, aren't you? The seamstress who lives in that small house on Pine Street. The one raising 3 children since your parents passed." Emma stiffened. "How do you know that?" "It's my job to know this town and its people." Nathan laid his cards face down. "And I know Hollister doesn't make offers out of charity." Shame burned Emma's cheeks. "My siblings are hungry," she whispered. "I've tried everything else." Nathan leaned forward, his voice dropping even lower. "There are other ways, Miss Rose, better ways." "Like what?" Emma asked bitterly. "I've tried to find more sewing work. I've sold everything of value we owned. Thomas is trying to find odd jobs, but he's just a boy." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. When he spoke, his words were so unexpected that Emma nearly dropped her coffee. "Marry me." Emma blinked, certain she'd misheard. "I beg your pardon." "Marry me," he repeated, his expression serious. "It would solve your problems, and it would solve mine as well." "Are you mocking me, Deputy?" Emma's voice cracked. "Because if you are, I'm not," Nathan said firmly. "I've been watching you for some time, Miss Rose. The way you care for those children, how hard you work. I respect that. I need a wife, you need support for your family. It could be a mutually beneficial arrangement." Emma stared at him, trying to determine if he was drunk or deranged, but his eyes remained clear and steady. "You're proposing marriage to a woman you've barely spoken to before tonight." "I know enough," he said. "I know you're honorable, hardworking, and devoted to your siblings. Those are rare qualities, better foundation for marriage than most have. And what would you expect in return?" Emma asked suspiciously, thinking of Hollister's proposition. Nathan seemed to read her thoughts. "I expect you to be my wife in name and reputation. To keep a home, the rest." He paused. "The rest can develop in its own time if it does. I'm not Hollister." Emma looked around the saloon at Hollister watching her with predatory eyes, at the miners who would be her customers if she accepted his offer. Then back at the steady, honest face of Deputy Marshal Nathan Keegan. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "The territorial governor is pressuring all lawmen to set proper examples in these towns. Unmarried deputies are being replaced with family men," Nathan explained. "And I'll be honest, I'm tired of living alone, eating poor food and coming home to an empty house. I've put it off long enough." Emma's mind raced. It seemed impossible, yet also the answer to prayers she'd been too afraid to voice. The children would have food on the table and a roof over their heads, Nathan finished for her, and a man around to teach the boys what they need to know. "Your family comes with you, of course." Emma stared into her coffee. This stranger was offering her an escape, a way to feed her siblings without losing her dignity. Yet marriage was meant to be sacred, not a business arrangement. "I don't love you," she said finally, meeting his eyes. Nathan's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. "I don't expect you to, not now anyway, but respect can grow into something more given time and care." Before Emma could respond, Hollister approached their table. "Time's up, sweetheart. What's your answer?" Emma looked between the two men, one offering degradation with quick money, the other offering respectability with stability. There really wasn't a choice. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hollister," she said, finding a strength in her voice that surprised her, "but I must decline your offer." "It seems I'm to be married." Hollister's face darkened. "To who?" "To me," Nathan said calmly, standing and placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. "Miss Rose has accepted my proposal of marriage." Hollister looked like he might argue, but the badge on Nathan's chest made him reconsider. "Your loss, girl," he muttered before stalking away. Emma let out a shaky breath. "When would this marriage happen?" "Tomorrow, if you're willing," Nathan replied. "No sense in waiting. Judge Wilson can perform the ceremony. Until then, I'll walk you home and explain to your siblings what's happening." Emma nodded slowly, still dazed by the sudden turn of events. "I don't even know you." "You'll have a lifetime to learn," Nathan said, offering his arm. "Starting tonight." The walk to Emma's small house seemed both endless and too short. Nathan kept a respectful distance as they moved through the darkened streets. talking in a low, steady voice about practical matters where they would live, how her siblings would be provided for, what his duties as deputy entailed. By the time they reached her front door, Emma had learned that Nathan was 32, had come west after fighting in the war, had no family left back east, and had been deputy in Pioche for 3 years. He owned a modest but sturdy house on the edge of town, had a good reputation among the townsfolk, and was known to be fair but firm in his duties. What she hadn't learned was why a man like him remained unmarried, or what had prompted him to make such an impulsive offer to a desperate young woman in a saloon. But those questions could wait. Tonight, she had to explain to 3 children that their lives were about to change again. Thomas was waiting up, a worried frown on his young face that made him look far older than 12. His eyes widened at the sight of the deputy. "Emma, is everything all right? Are you in trouble?" he asked, moving protectively toward her. "No trouble, Thomas," Emma assured him, touching his shoulder gently. "This is Deputy Marshal Keegan. She hesitated, unsure how to explain. "I've asked your sister to marry me," Nathan said directly, "and she's agreed." Thomas looked between them in confusion. "But you don't even know each other." "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns," Emma said softly. "The deputy Nathan has offered us a chance at a better life, for all of us." "All of us," Thomas repeated skeptically. "You and your brother and sister would come live with us," Nathan confirmed. "My house has room enough." Thomas crossed his arms. "And what do you get out of this arrangement, deputy?" Emma flushed at her brother's directness, but Nathan didn't seem offended. "A family," he answered simply, "and the security of my position." "Thomas," Emma said gently, "we have no food for tomorrow. I went to find work tonight." Understanding dawned on the boy's face, followed by horror. "Not at the saloon." "Emma, you didn't—" "I didn't," she assured him quickly. "And I won't have to because of Deputy Keegan's offer." Thomas studied Nathan with a scrutiny beyond his years. "You'll treat her well, and us too." "You have my word," Nathan replied solemnly. "I'll provide for you all and protect you as my own." After a long moment, Thomas nodded once. "Then I won't stand in the way." Emma released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "We'll tell Sarah and Joseph in the morning. The ceremony would be tomorrow." "So soon?" Thomas asked, surprised. "The sooner your sister becomes Mrs. Keegan, the sooner your situation improves," Nathan explained. "I'll bring provisions in the morning before the ceremony." As if to punctuate his words, Thomas's stomach growled audibly, causing the boy to flush with embarrassment. Nathan reached into his pocket and withdrew a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Here. It's not much, just some jerky and hard tack I carry on patrol. It should tide you over until morning." Thomas took the package, his pride warring with hunger. "Thank you," he said finally. After arranging to return at 9 the next morning, Nathan tipped his hat to Emma. "Get some rest, Miss Rose. Tomorrow begins a new chapter for us all." As Emma watched him walk away into the darkness, she wondered what kind of story that chapter would tell. She had traded one uncertain future for another, putting her faith and her family's well-being in the hands of a man she barely knew. Yet something about Nathan Keegan's steady gaze and straightforward manner gave her hope, something she hadn't felt in a very long time. When morning came, Emma woke before dawn, her stomach knotted with anxiety. She moved quietly through the small house, not wanting to wake the children yet. In the kitchen, she found Thomas had already risen, sitting at the table with a serious expression. "You don't have to do this, Emma," he said as she entered. "We can find another way." Emma shook her head. "There is no other way, Thomas, not one that keeps this family together and safe. But to marry a stranger." "He seems like a good man," Emma said, hoping she wasn't wrong, "and he's offering us all a home and security. In time, perhaps." She trailed off, unwilling to voice the hope that she might someday feel more for Nathan than desperate gratitude. The sound of approaching hoofbeats ended their conversation. Emma peered through the window to see Nathan dismounting from a sturdy bay horse, his arms laden with packages. When she opened the door, he greeted her with a polite nod. "Good morning, Miss Rose. I've brought breakfast and a few things for later." The few things turned out to be provisions that filled their bare cupboard: flour, sugar, coffee, bacon, beans, and more. There were also 2 packages wrapped in plain brown paper. "The larger one contains a dress," Nathan explained, somewhat awkwardly. "I asked Mrs. Wilson, the judge's wife, for assistance. She's about your size. I thought you might want something special for today." Emma touched the package gently, moved by the thoughtfulness. "And the other?" "Something for after the ceremony," he said, his expression unreadable. "Best saved for then." The commotion had awakened Sarah and Joseph, who emerged from the bedroom rubbing sleep from their eyes. They stopped short at the sight of a strange man in their kitchen. "Children," Emma said, beckoning them forward, "this is Deputy Marshal Keegan, Nathan. He has asked me to marry him, and I've said yes." Sarah, practical even at 9, looked at the food being unpacked rather than at Nathan. "Does this mean we won't be hungry anymore?" Nathan knelt to her level. "That's right, Sarah. No one will go hungry in my house." Joseph, still sleepy, asked the question that made Emma's cheeks burn. "Do you love my sister?" Nathan didn't flinch. "I respect and admire her very much. Love is something that grows between people who care for each other. I believe your sister and I can build that together." It was the perfect answer, honest without being harsh, hopeful without being false. Emma felt some of her anxiety ease. The morning passed in a flurry of activity. Nathan left them to prepare, promising to return with the judge at noon. Emma bathed using precious water they normally conserved, then opened the package containing the dress. It was simple but lovely, deep blue calico with lace at the collar and cuffs. Not a traditional wedding gown, but far nicer than anything Emma had worn since coming west. More importantly, it fit well, needing only minor adjustments that her seamstress skills could handle quickly. Sarah helped her arrange her hair, chattering excitedly about living in a real house with a lawman. Joseph asked 100 questions about Nathan that Emma couldn't answer. Thomas remained quiet, watchful, still unconvinced but willing to trust his sister's judgment. At precisely noon, there was a knock at the door. Judge Wilson, a portly man with kind eyes, entered with his wife and Nathan, who had exchanged his everyday work clothes for a clean black suit. His hat was in his hands, his hair neatly combed, his face freshly shaven. Emma was struck by how handsome he looked, something she hadn't fully registered in the dim saloon the night before. The ceremony was brief and solemn. Emma and Nathan stood before the judge, exchanged simple vows, and placed modest gold bands on each other's fingers. Emma wondered fleetingly where Nathan had acquired a woman's wedding band on such short notice, but the thought vanished as the judge pronounced them husband and wife. "You may kiss your bride," Judge Wilson prompted when Nathan seemed hesitant. Nathan leaned forward and placed a gentle, chaste kiss on Emma's lips, their first physical contact beyond a handshake. It lasted only a moment, but Emma felt an unexpected warmth spread through her. Mrs. Wilson had brought a small cake, and they shared an impromptu wedding breakfast at Emma's table, the last meal they would have in the house that had been both haven and prison for the Rose siblings. "We should pack your belongings," Nathan said as they finished. "My wagon is outside. We can move everything today." Emma looked around the sparse room. "There isn't much worth taking, just clothes, a few books, and Mother's quilt." "Everything of yours has value," Nathan said firmly. "We'll take it all." By mid-afternoon, The wagon was loaded with the Rose family's modest possessions. Emma took one last look at the small house that had sheltered them through the hardest time of their lives, then climbed onto the wagon seat beside Nathan. Her siblings settled among the bundles in the back. The ride to Nathan's house took them to the northwest edge of town, where the buildings grew sparser and the land opened up. As they crested a small rise, Emma caught her first glimpse of her new home. It was larger than she'd expected, a sturdy two-story structure built of timber and stone, with a wide front porch and glass windows. A barn stood to one side, and a corral contained 2 horses besides Nathan's bay. Behind the house, Emma could see the beginnings of a garden and an apple tree heavy with fruit. "It's beautiful," she breathed, unable to hide her surprise. Nathan looked pleased. "It needs a woman's touch, but it's sound. I built most of it myself over the past 3 years. You built this?" Thomas asked, impressed despite himself. "With some help from friends," Nathan acknowledged. "A man should create something solid in this world, something that will last beyond him." Inside, the house was clean but plain. The front room held a large stone fireplace, a wooden table with 6 chairs, and 2 comfortable-looking armchairs. Shelves lined one wall, filled with books that made Emma's heart leap with unexpected joy. A kitchen with a proper cook stove opened off the main room. Upstairs were 4 bedrooms, a large one that Emma realized with a flush would be hers and Nathan's, and 3 smaller ones for the children. Each was simply furnished but welcoming, with real beds and chests for clothing. "I had Mrs. Wilson help prepare the children's rooms yesterday," Nathan explained. "She brought some things her own children had outgrown." The thoughtfulness of this preparation, arranged before he'd even proposed, struck Emma deeply. This was not a man who made decisions lightly or failed to consider details. "Why did you really ask me to marry you?" she asked when the children were exploring their rooms. "The truth, please." Nathan considered her for a moment. "I told you the truth last night. I need a wife to secure my position, and you needed security for your family, but there's more." He hesitated. "I've watched you for months, Emma. Your strength, your determination to keep your family together against all odds, those are qualities I admire. I believe we can build a good life together, even without the conventional beginnings. And if we don't, if we find we can't tolerate each other, then we'll manage as countless other couples do, with respect and politeness, focusing on the children and our responsibilities," he answered honestly. "But I hope for more than that in time." Emma nodded, appreciating his candor. "As do I." Nathan reached for the smaller package he'd brought that morning. "This is for you, a wedding gift." Emma unwrapped it carefully, revealing a beautiful leather-bound journal and a quality fountain pen. She looked up, puzzled. "I've seen you watching the stationery in Murdoch's store window," Nathan explained. "I thought perhaps you liked to write." The simple gift, so perfectly suited to a dream she'd never shared with anyone, brought tears to Emma's eyes. "How did you know?" "I pay attention," he said simply. "It's what makes me good at my job, and it's what will make me a good husband, I hope." For the first time since her parents died, Emma felt a flicker of something beyond survival, a spark of possibility that her life might contain joy again, not just duty and struggle. The children returned, their initial wariness giving way to excitement as they explored their new home. Nathan showed Thomas the barn and promised to teach him to ride. He showed Sarah the kitchen garden and asked for her help tending it. For Joseph, he produced a wooden horse he'd carved himself, earning the little boy's instant adoration. As evening approached, Nathan helped Emma prepare a simple but satisfying supper, the first real meal the siblings had enjoyed in weeks. The conversation flowed more easily than Emma had expected, with Nathan drawing out the children's stories and interests with genuine attention, After the meal, he excused himself. "I need to check in at the office. With the miners paid yesterday, Saturday night can get rowdy. I won't be late." Emma nodded, suddenly nervous about what would happen when he returned. They were married now, sharing a home and a name. Would he expect? Nathan seemed to read her thoughts. "I'll take the chair in the study tonight," he said quietly. "You need time to adjust. We have no need to rush things between us." Relief and something like disappointment mingled in Emma's chest. "Thank you," she managed. After he left, Emma settled the children into their new beds. Joseph fell asleep almost immediately, clutching his wooden horse. Sarah peppered Emma with questions about being married until sleep finally claimed her. Thomas, however, remained troubled. "Are you sure about this, Emma?" he asked as she tucked him in, a ritual he usually protested was for babies. "You barely know him." "I'm learning," Emma said. "And what I've seen so far gives me hope. He's been kind, generous, and thoughtful. That's a good foundation." Thomas frowned. "But do you think you could ever love him, really love him?" Emma considered the question honestly. "I think I could, in time." Later, alone in the large bedroom that was now hers, Emma opened the journal Nathan had given her and began to write. She poured out her fears and hopes, the strangeness of the day's events, and her conflicted feelings about the man who was now her husband. When she finally slept, it was with the pen still in her hand. The next few weeks established a routine in the Keegan household. Nathan left early for his duties, returning for midday dinner when possible and always for supper. Emma managed the house, cooked meals that improved as she had proper ingredients to work with, and continued her seamstress work, though now for pleasure and extra income rather than desperate survival. The children thrived. Thomas began accompanying Nathan on weekend rounds when they stayed close to town, learning about the law and how to handle himself. Sarah discovered a talent for gardening and cooking. Joseph grew less withdrawn, regaining the cheerful nature that hardship had dampened. Emma and Nathan circled each other cautiously, polite and considerate, developing a partnership that functioned smoothly but maintained careful boundaries. They shared meals and conversation, household decisions and concerns about the children, but Nathan continued to sleep in the study, never pressing for more. As summer deepened, Emma found herself watching her husband when he didn't notice the way his hands moved when he repaired a fence, the rare smile that transformed his serious face when Joseph said something amusing, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was thinking deeply. One evening in late July, Emma was sitting on the front porch enjoying the cooling air after a scorching day. Nathan joined her, 2 glasses of lemonade in hand. "The children are finally asleep," he said, passing her a glass. Sarah kept asking for one more story. Emma smiled. "She's always been that way. Our mother used to say Sarah would bargain with the sun to stay up a little longer if she could." They sat in companionable silence, watching the stars appear. Finally, Nathan spoke. "Are you happy, Emma, with this arrangement with your life here?" Emma considered the question. "The children are happy and healthy. We have security and comfort. Yes, I'm happy." Nathan turned to look at her directly. "That's not what I asked. Are you happy?" The intensity of his gaze made Emma's heart beat faster. I'm content, more than I expected to be." "Content," Nathan repeated as if tasting the word, "not quite the same as happy." "Happiness seemed like an indulgence after our parents died," Emma admitted. "I was focused on survival. And now I'm beginning to remember what it feels like to want more than just survival," she said softly. Nathan's hand moved to cover hers on the porch railing. It was warm and calloused, strong but gentle. "I want more than contentment for us, Emma. For you." Emma looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. The expression she saw there made her breath catch hope and longing and something deeper that made her pulse quicken. "I've been patient," he continued. "I wanted to give you time to know me, to trust me. But I find myself thinking about you all day, wondering what you're doing, if you're smiling, hurrying home just to see your face." "Nathan," Emma whispered, unsure what to say. "You don't have to say anything," he assured her. "I just wanted you to know that while our marriage may have begun as an arrangement, my feelings have grown beyond that. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm here." He released her hand and stood to go inside, but Emma caught his wrist. Rising to her feet, she found herself standing very close to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, to feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I've been writing about you," she confessed. "In the journal you gave me, about how you are with the children. About the little things you do that show your character. About how sometimes when you look at me, I feel like the most precious thing in the world." Nathan's breath caught. "Emma, I'm not ready to say I love you," she continued. "But I'm ready to stop pretending this is just an arrangement of convenience. I'm ready to be a real wife to you, Nathan." He lifted a hand to her cheek, his touch reverent. "Are you certain? I can wait as long as you need." In answer, Emma rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. Unlike their brief, formal kiss at the wedding, this one deepened as Nathan's arms came around her, drawing her closer. Emma felt a warmth spread through her body, a yearning she'd never experienced before. When they finally separated, both breathing heavily, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he murmured. "Why didn't you?" Emma asked, her hand still on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. "Because I needed it to be your choice," he said simply. "Your desire, not just your duty." That night, for the first time, they shared the large bedroom as husband and wife in every sense. Nathan's tenderness and patience helped Emma through her initial nervousness, and by morning, she understood why poets wrote about passion and preachers warned against it. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, and nothing like the crude transactions she'd been contemplating in Hollister's saloon. As summer turned to autumn, Emma and Nathan's relationship continued to deepen. The careful politeness gave way to easy affection, shared jokes, and increasingly passionate nights. The household took on a feeling of permanence and joy that Emma had feared was lost forever after her parents' deaths. In early October, Nathan returned from a 3-day patrol tracking cattle rustlers to find the house unusually quiet. The children were at school, but Emma, who usually greeted him with a kiss and questions about his journey, was nowhere to be seen. He found her in their bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with a strange expression on her face. "Emma, are you ill?" he asked, kneeling before her in concern. She looked up, her eyes filled with wonder and uncertainty. "I'm with child," she whispered. "Our child." Nathan went completely still. "You're certain?" Emma nodded. "I've suspected for a few weeks. Mrs. Wilson confirmed it today." A slow smile spread across Nathan's face, so full of joy it transformed him. "A baby," he breathed, placing a gentle hand on her still flat stomach. "Our baby." "Are you pleased?" Emma asked, searching his face. "It's so soon and we're still finding our way together." Nathan pulled her into his arms. "I've never been happier," he assured her. "I love you, Emma Keegan. I love the family we've built and the one we're growing." Emma felt tears spring to her eyes, happy tears for once. "I love you too," she said, realizing as the words left her mouth that they were true. Somewhere between gratitude and respect, between partnership and passion, love had blossomed. "I didn't think I would, not like this, but I do." The news of Emma's pregnancy brought the household even closer together. Thomas, now 13 and increasingly serious about following Nathan into law enforcement, appointed himself her protector when Nathan was away. Sarah threw herself into learning more cooking and housekeeping skills to help. Joseph, now 8, asked endless questions about the baby, wondering if he would still be the youngest after it arrived. As winter settled over Pioche, bringing snow and bitter winds, the Keegan home remained warm and bright. Nathan took fewer overnight patrols, delegating more to his deputies to stay close to his expanding family. Emma's small seamstress business grew as she began creating layettes and children's clothes, her reputation for quality spreading through the town. One December evening, as a blizzard howled outside, the family gathered around the fireplace. Joseph and Sarah played checkers on the rug while Thomas read one of Nathan's law books. Emma worked on a tiny gown for the baby, due in late spring. Nathan sat beside her, one arm around her shoulders, his other hand resting on the gentle swell of her stomach. "I was thinking about names," he said quietly. "If it's a boy, perhaps after your father." Emma smiled, touched by the suggestion. "James Nathan Keegan. It has a nice sound." "And if it's a girl, Hope," Emma said without hesitation, "because that's what you gave me when I had none left. Hope for a future, for happiness." Nathan kissed her temple. "Hope it is." A knock at the door startled them all. Nathan frowned, reaching automatically for the pistol he kept nearby. Who would be out in this storm? He opened the door cautiously to find a young woman, no more than 17, shivering violently in the snow. Her clothes were inadequate for the weather, her face pale with cold and fear. "Please," she stammered through blue lips. "They said Deputy Keegan might help me." Nathan ushered her inside, where Emma immediately wrapped her in a blanket and guided her to the fire. The girl's frightened eyes darted around the room, taking in the comfortable home and the concerned faces. "What's your name?" Emma asked gently, pressing a cup of hot tea into the girl's trembling hands. "Lydia," she whispered. "Lydia Miller." "What brings you out in this weather, Lydia?" Nathan asked, his voice professional but kind. The girl's story emerged in fits and starts. "Orphaned last year, taken in by an uncle who worked her like a slave, then tried to sell her to a passing cattle baron old enough to be her grandfather. She'd fled with nothing but the clothes on her back, making her way to Pioche because she'd heard there was work for young women at the hotel or the general store. But when I got here, the only person offering work was Mr. Hollister at the saloon," Lydia said, her voice breaking. "He said a pretty girl like me could make good money, but I'd have to be friendly to the customers. I knew what he meant. I told him no, and he got angry, said I'd change my mind once hunger set in. The woman at the boarding house said maybe Deputy Keegan could help, that he'd helped another girl once." Emma and Nathan exchanged a look loaded with memory and understanding. Without discussion, Emma knew exactly what they would do. "You'll stay with us tonight," she said firmly. "Tomorrow we'll figure out something more permanent." "I don't want to be a burden," Lydia protested weakly. "You're not," Nathan assured her. "We have plenty of room and food to share." That night, after Lydia was settled in the spare bedroom and the children were asleep, Emma found Nathan standing at the window, watching the still falling snow. "You're thinking about the night we met," she said, slipping her arms around his waist from behind. He covered her hands with his. "How could I not? The parallels are striking, except she's alone, no siblings depending on her." Nathan turned to face her. "What are you suggesting, Emma? She could stay here with us. Help with the children and the baby when it comes. Learn a trade, seamstress work perhaps, or cooking. Until she finds her feet, or—" Emma hesitated. "Or," Nathan prompted, "or meet someone who sees her worth as you saw mine," Emma finished. Nathan's eyes softened. "You want to help her find what we found." "Is that foolish, presumptuous?" "It's generous and compassionate," Nathan corrected. "And exactly why I love you." The next morning, they made the offer to Lydia, who accepted with tears of gratitude. As winter deepened, she became part of the household rhythm, her initial shyness giving way to quiet confidence as she learned from Emma and formed bonds with the children. In February, Nathan was appointed full marshal after the previous one retired, a promotion that recognized his service, and as the governor's letter noted his standing as a family man of excellent character. The irony that his marriage of convenience had become the very thing that secured his career advancement wasn't lost on either Nathan or Emma. By March, Emma's pregnancy was well advanced, her belly round and prominent. Nathan became increasingly protective, insisting she rest more and delegate tasks to Lydia and the children. Emma complied with good grace, using the time to prepare for the baby and reflect on the extraordinary turn her life had taken. 1 year ago, she had been desperate, considering unthinkable options to feed her siblings. Now she was the respected wife of the town marshal, mistress of a comfortable home, mother to 3 thriving children, mentor to a young woman finding her way, and soon to welcome a baby of her own. "What are you smiling about?" Nathan asked one evening, finding her in the nursery, folding tiny clothes. "How strange life's paths can be," Emma replied. "If someone had told me a year ago that this would be my life, I would have thought them mad." Nathan knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Do you ever regret saying yes to my proposal? It wasn't exactly romantic." Emma laughed softly. "You offered me salvation when I needed it most. What could be more romantic than that?" "I offered a practical solution," Nathan corrected. "You're the one who turned it into something beautiful." "We did that together," Emma said, placing his hand on her belly where their child kicked vigorously. "And we're still building every day." In late April, as the first wildflowers began to carpet the hills around Pioche, Emma went into labor. Nathan paced anxiously while Mrs. Wilson and Lydia attended her, Thomas keeping the younger children occupied downstairs. After 6 hours of labor, which Emma later described as vigorous but straightforward, Hope, Elizabeth Keegan made her entrance into the world with a powerful cry that immediately won her father's heart. When Nathan was finally allowed into the bedroom, he found Emma sitting up against the pillows, their daughter cradled in her arms. The sight struck him with such profound emotion that he had to steady himself against the bedpost. "Come meet your daughter," Emma said softly, her face tired but radiant. Nathan approached almost reverently, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. Emma placed the tiny bundle in his arms, and he looked down at the small face, perfect features and shock of dark hair. "She's beautiful," he whispered, voice rough with emotion, "like her mother." "I think she has your chin," Emma said, touching the baby's face gently, "and definitely your stubbornness. She was in quite a hurry to arrive." Nathan laughed softly, then grew serious. "Thank you, Emma." "For what?" "For everything. For saying yes that night. For giving our arrangement a chance to become something real. For this family." He gestured around the room, indicating not just the baby but the life they'd built. "For loving me." Emma reached for his hand. "And thank you for seeing something in me worth saving, worth building a life with." "I saw everything," Nathan said simply. The baby made a small sound, and Nathan carefully returned her to Emma's arms. "The children are anxious to meet their sister. Shall I bring them up?" Emma nodded, and soon the bedroom was filled with excited voices as Thomas, Sarah, and Joseph crowded around to see the newest Keegan. Lydia hung back, uncertain until Emma beckoned her forward. "Family isn't just blood," Emma told her. "It's love and choice and commitment." "You're part of this too, Lydia." As Emma looked around at the faces surrounding her, her brother and sister, growing strong and confident. Little Joseph, no longer haunted by hunger. Lydia, blossoming with opportunity and security. Her husband, whose steady love had transformed her life. And now their daughter, the physical embodiment of that love, she felt a completeness she had never imagined possible. That night, after the excitement had calmed and the household settled, Nathan sat beside Emma on their bed, watching Hope sleep in her cradle. "A year ago I was alone, focused only on duty and work," he mused. "Now look at us. From an arrangement to a family," Emma said. "Not the path I expected, but exactly where I was meant to be." Nathan kissed her gently. "Welcome home, Mrs. Keegan." 5 years later, the Keegan house had expanded to accommodate their growing family. After Hope came James, now 3, and little Margaret, just turning 1. Thomas, at 18, had followed Nathan into law enforcement and served as a deputy under his brother-in-law's guidance. Sarah, 15, showed promise as a teacher and assisted at the town school. Joseph, 13, had Nathan's mechanical aptitude and was apprenticed part-time to the blacksmith. Lydia had indeed found her own path, marrying a young rancher the previous year after a proper courtship that Emma had quietly guided. She lived on a small spread outside town but visited often, especially since discovering she was expecting her first child. Pioche had grown too, becoming more civilized as families replaced single minors and proper businesses pushed out the more unsavory establishments. Hollister's saloon had burned down 2 years ago, a suspicious fire that Nathan investigated thoroughly, but could never quite resolve. Few mourned its loss. Emma's seamstress business had evolved into a proper shop on Main Street, where she worked 3 days a week while Nathan or the older children watched the little ones. Her designs were sought after by women throughout the territory, providing a comfortable additional income that was no longer needed for survival, but allowed for luxuries and savings for the children's futures. Nathan had been offered positions in larger towns, even in Carson City, but always declined. Pioche was home, the place where he'd found his family and purpose. As marshal, he'd established a reputation for fairness and integrity that made the town safer year by year. On the 10th anniversary of their wedding, Nathan surprised Emma by taking her back to the spot where they'd first met, though the building was now a respectable hotel rather than a saloon. "You remember that night?" he asked as they stood outside, his arm around her waist. Emma leaned against him. "How could I forget? I was terrified, desperate, with no hope left, and then there you were." "I had been watching you for weeks before that," Nathan admitted, "looking for a way to approach you that wouldn't seem inappropriate. When I saw you talking to Hollister, I knew I couldn't wait any longer." "You never told me that," Emma said, surprised. Nathan smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling in the way she loved. "I was afraid you'd think I was some sort of stalker." "It wasn't exactly normal behavior, proposing to a woman I'd barely spoken to." "Nothing about our beginning was normal," Emma laughed. "But look where it led us." They walked arm in arm through the town that had been the setting for their unlikely love story, stopping to greet neighbors and friends. At the general store, now run by Mrs. Wilson's son, they purchased candy for the children and a small silver locket that Nathan fastened around Emma's neck. "Open it," he urged. Inside was a tiny portrait of Nathan on one side, and on the other, miniature silhouettes of all their children, somehow fitted into the small space. "It's perfect," Emma whispered, touching it reverently. "Just like the life we've built." That evening, with the younger children asleep and the older ones enjoying a social at the church, Nathan and Emma sat on their front porch swing, watching the sunset paint the desert landscape in gold and crimson. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against him, their hands intertwined. "10 years ago, if someone had told me I would find this kind of happiness, I wouldn't have believed it possible," Emma said softly. "Nor I," Nathan agreed. I thought I was offering you an arrangement, a practical solution. I never imagined you would become the very center of my world." Emma turned to look at him, this man who had saved her from desperation and shown her what love could truly be. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible, for valuing me when I felt worthless, for loving me before I could love myself." "And thank you," Nathan replied, cupping her cheek, "for turning a marriage of convenience into the greatest adventure of my life." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, their lips met in a kiss as sweet and promising as the first one they'd shared on this very porch years ago. The road from desperate arrangement to deep and abiding love had been unexpected, but neither would change a single step of the journey. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, a lonesome sound answered by another. But on the porch of the Keegan home, there was only togetherness, warmth, and the quiet certainty of love that had grown from the most unlikely of beginnings, a love that would continue to deepen and strengthen through all the years to come.